Hi, my name is Nikki Buchanan. I am the owner of Soul Things Botanica, your one-stop shop for herbs, waters, incense, and more. Today is Monday, so this is my Magic Monday broadcast, where I talk about a myriad of mystical, magical, mystic things. And tonight I kind of want to talk about ancestral healing, family curses, and The Kite Runner, or movies like The Kite Runner. Okay, so I had never seen The Kite Runner, and I watched it tonight. And I had heard very good things about this movie and the book, and my mom in particular had told me some things about the book and the movie that I kind of already knew was going to happen, but I still had to watch the whole movie. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to get through. I will say this. I will say that, it was hard to watch. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Kadisha. The Kite Runner was hard to watch, but I think it's important. Like I said, it was something that I needed to watch. I had watched some other movies similar that involved like ancestral healing of some sort. So if you've never seen The Kite Runner, I'm probably just gonna spoil it for you right now, because it's been out for a while. So I feel like I'm the late bird to the party, but it's about two boys who grow up. One of them is the servant of the family. One of them is the privileged boy. And something horrific happens to the servant boy. Even though these boys grow up like brothers, something horrific happens to the servant boy. I don't want to call him the entitled boy, but the privileged child witnesses this horrific thing happening to his friend, who was like his brother, and he cowards out. Like, he just like totally checks out. It's like, nah, I'm not, he don't stand up for his friend, none of that. And, it's something that kind of haunts him, for the rest of his life. The boy and his father end up emigrating to America after the Soviets invade Afghanistan. And he learns of his friend's demise and of his son's ultimate fate, his friend's son. He also learns that the friend is actually his brother. So there's that. So in learning that his dear friend, who was the servant, is his brother, he goes on a quest to redeem himself and his friend by saving his son from, a horrific fate in Afghanistan. Ultimately at the hands of the same person who hurt his father, the little boy's father. So it's a great, brings everything full circle, great story. Similar movies that I've watched with that type of storyline was Cloud Atlas, which had, I believe, Halle Berry, Tom Hanks, and a bunch of other people was in that. It was a great movie. And that also talks about like ancestral healing and like making different choices in your line and, healing trauma of past lifetimes. And I'm saying all of this to say that, when we talk about working with ancestors, we sometimes forget that they were human and that they were flawed, right? So ancestor reverence is not worshiping your ancestors. It's literally elevating them, because as we all know from Hollywood and all types of, movies about ghosts and these types of things, like sometimes people have what they call unfinished business, right? But at the end of the day, very few people die without some sort of unfinished business, without something that they've done that they're not proud of, without something that they struggle with, whether it was openly or in private. Everyone has something that they did, some type of regrets. There's very few of us that's going to die with no regrets at all. Like, you're going to have a regret or two. Some people have a lot. And sometimes these regrets, these traumas, this unfinished business gets passed down to the next generation. Now, sometimes we know what the previous generations, shortcomings were. Sometimes we don't. People don't really like to talk about their shortcomings. Maybe when they get a little drunk, they want to talk about it. But for the most part, people don't like to talk about the times they fucked up or had something fucked up happen to them. They kind of just keep that to themselves and say, oh, it's going to go away. And a lot of times these things don't go away, right? They come out in different forms. They manifest in different forms. Whether it be sickness, whether it be various types of tumors, whether it be certain congenital diseases, whether it be some hereditary diseases, illness, like hereditary mental illnesses as well. And I'm not saying that, just let me clear this up. I'm not saying that mental illness is a generational curse or anything like that. I'm just saying that if you come from a family that's predisposed to schizophrenia, you have a possibility to have schizophrenia. If you come from a family that predisposed to diabetes, that's very possible. Does it mean that you're going to get diabetes? No. Right? Like, it means that you have a propensity for diabetes. It means that your body has a proclivity to not process sugar properly. And because of your hereditary history and medical background, you're more likely to have diabetes by X, Y, and Z age. Now, certain things you could do to offset diabetes, right? You could eat right, work out, watch your sugar intake, watch your liquor intake, right? And those things could kind of, like, for the most part, keep diabetes at bay and other, physical illnesses. Now, mental illness is a lot different. Sometimes your brain is just how it is. I myself was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 5 years ago, and it does not go away, right? I'm not on medication. I'm not against any type of medication. I personally just am not on any medication. And I do a lot of things in my day-to-day to keep my mood stable and to keep my chemicals in balance. And I know what throws them off, and I know what puts them back into a nice equilibrium. So, the women in my family are all, on my mom's side, predisposed to depression, right? Like, hard body. Like, I'm talking about 3-4 generations back, women dealing with depression. I mean, my great-grandmother at some point was catatonic, which means that she did not speak or talk or engage with anyone for months at a time. She had to be admitted to a hospital. It was a very hard time for my grandmother and her sisters. They don't like to talk about that, and they had to go be relocated to some family up in Mount Vernon, and it was a whole thing. And we don't know why great-grandma went catatonic. It could have been a lot of things. She had a husband that at that time was in prison. She had 3 young girls. She was taking care of her mother. She's the oldest sibling, so she had to deal with that. It was a lot. She probably had a lot of pressure on her, and she did not have access to the same tools, terminology, outlets that we have today. So with that being said, there are a lot of things that go down in our family lines that, when you are doing your ancestor work, you will find some things are not that fun to discover, right? Like, you'll find that, you'll learn some really ugly things about family members and be like, damn, like, why would you do that? And like, even in trying to figure out their motives for why and how and what happened and all these things, you could kind of always get to a central point of like, okay, this was really traumatic and this might have affected the person like this. Then you also have to connect it back to your life and how you handle certain things, certain situations, what your natural, emotional set point is for things. A lot of times you'll find that certain things do run in the family, hot tempers and stubbornness, all that stuff. Sometimes you think it's just you, and it's not just you. You got an aunt, an uncle, a grandfather, a great grandmother, great aunt on your mother's side that has the same shit, right? And you have to think about the choices that you're making in your life and whether or not you're doing things that will elevate you, not just you, but elevate your bloodline as well. So on my mom's side, again, my great-grandfather struggled with addiction. And I have aunts and uncles that struggle with addiction. I also have cousins that struggle with addiction. And sometimes making those connections to people, it might change their perspective on things. They might realize, hey, I'm not the only one going through this, and I'm not the only one in this family that had to battle with this. And sometimes, even in the people who weren't able to kick the habit or find healing in life, they may find healing through us and the things that we do. Because at the end of the day, they're on the other side and they can see everything that we're doing, right? Sometimes they'll tell you, you're fucking up. Sometimes you're not listening. You can't hear, or sometimes they'll encourage you, like, yes, keep up the good work. But as long as you know that everything that you do is not just for you. You're doing things for people that came before you and for the people that come ahead of you. So I had a very long talk with my cousin on my father's side on Saturday, and it was beautiful. We had a whole FaceTime. He was on FaceTime for 4 hours. Oh, excuse me. I was on FaceTime for 4 hours, and we was just going back and forth talking about the things on our fathers, because both of our fathers are brothers. on our father's side of the family that are like things that we just don't want to do no more, you know, and realizing that we do have a natural emotional set point because there was a lot of emotional blockage and trauma in our line, and we see our parents and our aunts and uncles struggle with certain things, and we realize that we too, you know, we could go there. Like me, as cousins, we could have the same type of issues that our parents had, that our grandparents had, but we're realizing that we have to realize that we do have a choice in how and why we do things, and we can change the way we, you know, engage with each other as family members, engage with ourselves, and engage with our children. You know, I don't have any children, but my cousin has a daughter, and she's just always talking about like how when she first got married that there was a lot of things she had to work out, you know, with her husband. And now that she has a daughter, she sees so many traits in her daughter that she's like, oh gosh, I don't know where she got that from. She's so young. How could she have such a temper? And it's like, girl, that temper running the family. We got to figure out how to temper that temper for real. Like how we've all had to, right? Like the ones that have been successfully able to be like, I know how to chill. I'm not going to go off the handle. I'm not going to, you know, wild out. And it's not easy. You know, it's a constant every day. And it's even a constant checking in with other family members who share the same thing to be like, girl, you going there. And being willing to be like, oof, you almost fell off the cliff. Thank you. You're right. I do need to be easy right now. And I love that conversation I had with my cousin because we both, you know, I was able to tell her some family stories that she never heard, and she was able to tell me some family stories I never heard, and together we were able to kind of cobble a little something more together, right? Like get a little bit more of the story making sense. And it was like, oh, okay, that's why this, that, and the third. And then realizing that, you know, a lot of the times we judge our ancestors for whatever choices they made without even putting ourselves in their shoes, right? Like sometimes you really got to put yourself in that person's shoes and be like, listen, back in the 1940s, in the islands, in America, whatever, black women was not, our life was not that easy, right? Our life is easier now. We do have our struggles now, but at the same time, like a lot of the things that we take for granted as women in 2018, women back in the day, they couldn't do. You couldn't go to work unless your husband gave you permission. You couldn't go to the doctor unless your husband gave you permission. You wasn't getting no abortion, or you wasn't getting on no birth control, especially without your husband's permission. You couldn't buy property some places. You couldn't own a business. Like it was like some places was very strict on what the gender roles were for women. And, you know, sometimes women made really hard choices that were just not, you know, what the family members might consider to be selfish, but some stuff was just not as easy and cut and dry as we like to make it out, because we're looking at it with, you know, the perspective of wherever we're at and wherever we are at in time. So right now we're in 2018, and we can't really look down on women in the 50s and 60s for the things that they did, because trust me, a lot of us would not be having the life that we have now if we was back in the 50s and 60s, straight up. Especially if you lived in the islands, and especially if you lived down south, you had a different life. You know, maybe a metropolitan woman had a freer life than a woman in the country, but she still had her struggles, you know. And it's beautiful when you're able to identify certain things in your bloodline and realize, hey, I got a choice. I don't want to do it like that. Like, this is not helping nobody, and I want to be able to make a better choice for my family in the future and for the family members that weren't able to make those choices. And there's a quote that I love that says that we are the manifestation of our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I do believe that. I truly believe that 100 years ago, someone who looked like me would never believe that they would be able to live in an apartment that, you know, wasn't rammed full of people, or that they would have access to technology that, you know, like a phone or a computer. You know, even somebody 150 years ago, they weren't even free. You know, they couldn't read. If they found that they was reading, you know, so it's like all of the things that we take for granted. Being able to read, being able to communicate, being able to travel freely, as free as we can in America, because we already know, you know, some places you don't want to get caught there after dark. But for the most part, being able to buy a plane ticket, being able to get on the train, sit where you want, be able to get on a bus, sit wherever you want, like those things, and our ancestors did not have those choices. So when we think about the things that we're doing, we need to give thanks for people that survived really harder times than we could ever imagine, And we also need to make the most of our lives that we have now, so that way we can honor them and say, you know what, I know you weren't able to go to school because your husband didn't want you to go to school, but I'm going to go to school. I'm going to learn a new trade. I'm going to learn how to drive. I'm going to learn, I'm going to get a skill. I'm going to take a position in a male-dominated field or department. I'm going to do something courageous that, even though right now it may seem a little frivolous, to someone who came before me, this is a big deal. And I'm going to act like it's a big deal. I'm not going to treat my life like it's small, So, like the kite runner, Amir had to make a very hard choice. He had to face going back to Afghanistan in the midst of the Taliban regime and rescued his boy, who was his nephew, and he made a poor choice when he was younger, and he didn't get to redeem himself with his half brother, but he was able to redeem himself through his nephew, through the child. And sometimes it's like that, which is why sometimes people who are horrible parents or not good parents, they're better grandparents, because they feel like it's their second chance to make things right, and for some of us, we might not get a chance to make things right with certain people before we die. That's just the reality. We might die with some unfinished words, some unfinished business. But I think that if we are being conscious of our choices and being conscious of the ways that our actions ripple, like water, like a drop of water that just ripples, it's going to affect something in somewhere. And we have to look at our lives and hold our lives with a lot of value, and not think that, I'm just living my life, do what I want. All right, you can do what you want. But at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, you want to feel good about yourself. You want to feel good about the choices that you made. You want to feel confident that you're not hurting somebody or even hurting yourself. Because even some of the things that we hold to ourselves, like not going to therapy and talking it out, or not seeking medical treatment because we feel we don't have enough money, sometimes these things that could have been mitigated or prevented get exacerbated into something that is now, a fatal situation, or it's a traumatic situation that you're never going to heal from because you don't even want to admit that something traumatic happened to you. And that's okay too. But also know that for everything that you don't do in this life, somebody in the next life is going to be picking it up. So it's kind of like when you move, right? You move out of an apartment. If you know you're going to move, you pack up, you kind of clean up as you go. And then when it's time, you just move out. But if you just leave the place in a mess and people got to come and sort and pick through your life and figure out what you wanted to keep, what you wanted to throw away, all that stuff, it makes it harder. And there's no reason to make things harder than what they should be. Which is why I always, not always, but like I stressed in one of my last lives, speaking to people before they become ancestors, figuring out pieces of their story when, before you got to try and figure it out on the other side. Because there can be some healing there. And it might not happen in that person's lifetime. That person might die, but they might have left you with a piece of pertinent information that you can use to better the family in the future. And I don't know, I think it's beautiful. I think it is so beautiful when you think about your life not just being a string from your birth to your death, but being a cord that's interwoven with other strings, and it makes a stronger fiber, and that becomes your family lineage, and that is lovely. I just think that's beautiful. I don't even know how many thousands of people came before me or how many thousands will come after me, but I know that right now, in this moment in time, I'm doing what I can to heal myself. I'm in therapy again, and I'm trying to work through some emotions and channeling my creativity in ways that I felt scared to do before, like doing live videos and doing YouTube videos and sharing my views on spirituality and openly, and not feeling ashamed or embarrassed or scared to share my views, especially if they deviate from what is popular right now in mainstream. Because at the end of the day, at least I know that I go to sleep at night and I feel good about myself and I feel good about what I'm doing. And hopefully 50 years from now, there will be some grandchildren at my feet like, Grandma, tell me about the time that your grandmother X, Y, and Z, and I'll be able to tell them that. And that sometimes is all you could, some people want glory, some people want to, they name in lights and all that stuff. I just want to be a good fucking person for my family, so that way the things that I'm healing and going through, the next generation will have a little bit easier, and the generation after that will have it a bit easier. And that's all I can really do, Whether I become rich and famous, that's up to the world, because I don't have no control over that. But whether I become influential and instrumental in my family's healing, that's on me. and I'll take responsibility for my part and work with my cousins and my aunts and uncles to figure out how we could put these pieces back together and see the beauty in our family, and not just the trials, but also the triumphs. And that is today's Magic Monday. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I have videos going up every Tuesday and Friday. I did not put up a video this past Friday because I was kind of out of it. And I guess I'm going to put up the video from the last Magic Monday on YouTube. And I have to record some more videos. I don't have anything recorded, so I might just record some stuff in the morning and then have one up by tomorrow night. But for right now, thanks for watching. Again, my name is Nikki Buchanan. I'm the owner of Soul Things Botanica, your one-stop shop for herbs, waters, incense, and more. You can find me on Instagram at SoulThingsBK, and you can find me on the web at soulthingsbotanica.com. And you've been this is Magic Monday, and you can catch me next Monday around the same time, 9, 10-ish. I'm not really beholden to any time, but yeah. Thank you. Bye.